Hello, Mind Gardeners, and welcome to another episode of The Mind Garden. Today we're going to be talking about the topic, breaking the rumination loop. If you've ever lain in bed, replaying a conversation from intensity of a courtroom drama, you already know what rumination feels like. It's that sticky mental loop where the mind circles the same thought, the same worry, the same regret, as if repetition might finally produce a different ending. Sometimes it starts innocently. A quick second guessing of how you sounded in a meeting, or a small fear about an upcoming decision. Then it gathers momentum. Suddenly you're not just thinking, you're trapped in thinking, watching the hours thin out while your mind insists it's doing something productive. Rumination is persuasive because it masquerades as problem solving. It gives a sensation of work, of diligence, of caring. If you think about it long enough, surely you will find the perfect response you should have said, the hidden explanation for why they acted that way, the guaranteed strategy to prevent the same pain from happening again. But the hallmark of rumination is that it does not move, it spins. The content may shift slightly, but the emotional tone stays fixed, usually some combination of anxiety, shame, anger, or sadness. The longer it goes, the more you start to feel as if the loop is you, rather than something your mind is doing. One reason rumination is so hard to break is that it often begins in moments when you are depleted. At the end of a demanding day, the mind looks for closure and certainty, and it tends to reach for what feels unfinished. It might be a conflict, an ambiguity, a mistake, or even something that went well but feels fragile. Rumination thrives in the gaps where you do not have all the information, because uncertainty is uncomfortable and the brain is wired to reduce discomfort. When it can't resolve the uncertainty through action, it tries to resolve it through analysis. Unfortunately, analysis without new data quickly becomes self-interrogation. The mind becomes both prosecutor and defendant, and you are stuck in the courtroom. Another reason is that rumination can become a habit. The brain learns patterns the way feet learn a familiar path. If you've spent years responding to stress by going inward and replaying scenarios, that response can become automatic. It does not necessarily mean you are overdramatic or weak-willed. It means your mind has learned that looping is a default method of trying to stay safe. In a strange way, rumination can feel like vigilance. If you keep scanning, replaying, and predicting, maybe you can prevent being blindsided. The problem is that the cost is constant tension, and the promised safety never really arrives. Breaking the rumination loop starts with a small but powerful shift. Recognizing the difference between useful reflection and repetitive mental chewing. Useful reflection tends to be specific, time-limited, and action-oriented. It leads to a decision, a lesson, a conversation you plan to have, or a concrete next step. Rumination tends to be self-punishing. It asks unanswerable questions like, why do I always do this? What if this ruins everything? One of the most effective ways to interrupt rumination is simply naming it in real time. Not in a dramatic way, just a quiet acknowledgement. This is rumination. I am looping. That label creates a sliver of distance between you and the thought stream, and that distance is where change becomes possible. Once you can spot the loop, it helps to understand what kind of problem you're facing. Some problems are solvable through action. Others are not, at least not immediately. Rumination often appears when you treat an emotional problem as if it is an engineering problem. Emotions do not resolve through perfect arguments. They resolve through being processed, expressed, soothed, and sometimes simply carried for a while. If you're ruminating about something you can't change right now, a better question than, why did this happen, is, what do I need in this moment? The answer might be rest. It might be reassurance. It might be movement. It might be a conversation with someone you trust. That shift from explanation seeking to need meeting is not avoidance. It is realism. There's also value in giving the mind a container. Rumination loves unstructured time, especially late at night when there are fewer distractions and your body is tired. If your brain insists on returning to a topic, consider setting aside a brief intentional window earlier in the day for thinking it through. When the thought arises outside that window, you can remind yourself that you already have time scheduled to consider it. This is not about being rigid. It's about teaching your mind that it does not have to ambush you at midnight. Over time, that practice can reduce the sense of urgency that fuels the loop. The body is another underestimated lever. Rumination feels driven by physiology, stress hormones, shallow breathing, a clenched jaw, a tight chest, an over-caffeinated nervous system. All of these can make thoughts feel louder and more convincing. When you're stuck, it can help to do something that signals safety to your nervous system. Slow breathing is a classic because it works. A brief walk, stretching, stepping outside for cool air, even eating something if you have skipped meals can change the internal environment enough to loosen the grip of repetitive thinking. It may sound too simple, but many rumination episodes are less about insight and more about a body that's stuck in threat mode. Then there's attention. Rumination hijacks attention by pretending it is urgent. The mind says, you must solve this right now. One effective redirect attention to something concrete and sensory. Redirect your attention to something concrete. What can you see, hear, feel in your hands? Notice in the room. The goal is not to force thoughts away because that often backfires. The goal is to stop feeding them with full attention. Attention is like fuel. Rumination runs on it. When you repeatedly bring your focus back to the present, you're not denying your concerns. You're choosing not to rehearse them endlessly. It also helps to change the way you relate to the content of the thoughts. Ruminative thoughts often arrive as statements that sound like facts. I embarrass myself. They think I'm incompetent. I'm going to mess this up. The mind delivers these lines with authority, as if it has done a thorough investigation. A helpful practice is to add a little uncertainty back into the story. Maybe, possibly, I'm having the thought that. Those small phrases do not solve the issue, but they soften the certainty that keeps you trapped. Rumination thrives on certainty, even if the certainty is negative. Introducing nuance gives you room to breathe. Some rumination is rooted in perfectionism, the belief that there is a correct way to be and that there's no other way. But that is just a lie that your brain is always trying to throw at you. Not everything has to be perfect. You can live in the now without having to answer every single question all the time. And if you start practicing mindfulness and letting go, you will soon feel that not every thought has to be analyzed with exact precision.